question now is, who is organizing childcare workers in Ontario and how is this beneficial? My original question was, how can PSAC partner with a provincial union to organize childcare workers in Ontario? I think you can see there's a little bit of a difference in those two questions, right? We'll get back to why that changed later on in the presentation. So this is me, and that's my mama. She was one of the first female VPs in OPSU, and she kicked my butt, and that's my dad. And so I'm, like you, third generation labor activist. I simply cannot stand still and watch things go on and go by. So part of coming to Labor College and looking at this question, and because I'm so action oriented, this was a super difficult process for me. Not because I couldn't see an issue I wanted to pursue or anything like that, but it was staying on the task of the research and the why, and how this question changes and how it applies to engagement and movement building and all of those things. And I find that for me, having to revisit that again and again it was difficult. So we're faced with a childcare situation that requires immediate action. Well, yeah, I think we know all about that, right? That's been a lot in the news lately. But this quote is actually super old. So let's look at who we're talking about when we're talking about organizing childcare workers in Ontario. So we'll start with the workers themselves. They work all over the place, right? Whether or not you have kids, I mean, you've seen nannies with the 7-kid plans going along, right? And maybe there's a childcare center in your work, but let's not forget about those people who work at IKEA and clean the ball pits, right? Like all of those people are involved in childcare. So it's like Nona, and so is Uncle John, right? All of those people are childcare providers. And I'm not including parents, right? I'm including people who aren't the primary caregivers here. But we're going to look primarily at two groups, right? So ECEs and like home care providers. So we're looking at those two major groups because they're the ones with the most data and the ones that are most quantifiable, right? So when we look at home care providers, according to a 2016 bit of data, they were 10 times more likely than non-permanent residents to be non-permanent residents, and they're also more likely to be immigrants. So this ties back to a lot of the stuff we were talking about, knowing who your people are, right? In membership, and Larry has said, we don't really know who our members are, but I would argue that we don't know who our members aren't, okay? There's a lot of people who are working who aren't organized, and we're not getting them there. We are not affording them those opportunities. So the employers are also a stakeholder in this business. They are daycare centers. They are individuals, like myself, for example. If I were to hire a person to come in and watch my kids all summer long, right? There's all sorts of people involved in childcare as employers. So let's look at the unions who are organizing in Ontario. CUPE, Unifor, PSAC was who I started out with my postulate in my original question. I thought, hey, yeah, they must be doing it. We have like tens of thousands of workers in PSAC in Ontario, right? Like Ontario PSAC people, UNE, la la la. And I thought, oh, yeah, we must be doing that. Yeah, we're not. And I was like, why are we doing this? Because my original thought was, hey, there's a teachers union that had success organizing during the pandemic. Let's partner with them. Let's use our, national might to we've got to be doing this, right? Like, can we target it and get Ontario organized? Because this was before they made that announcement about the whole national blah blah, right, when I started this. And I thought, that would be really great. And then I started to look into it. They're like, yeah, no, we're not doing that. Because unions specialize in a lot of ways, right? Like steel workers aren't called steel workers because they knit, right? Like, so there's a lot of specialty.
Love it.
That's good, right? Because they understand the issues, and we were talking about equity and equality, and we were talking about groups. You represent such disparate groups of people, and then you get those built-in issues, right? Well, so this kind of thing is sort of alleviating those issues. QP already has working knowledge, working with teachers and educators, and they already have some people organized. So makes sense to stay in their wheelhouse and expand that working relationship and knowledge, right? So that's really great. But then it leaves me thinking, well, what is PSCC doing to bolster this, right? So I'm still kind of on that partnership thing when I'm doing my project, but what else? All right, so we recommend that the federal government, Word Alert, okay, that's a lot of text. And in terms of presentation, that is too much text on the slide. So you're all looking like I feel, and I'm sweating because I've had so much coffee, so please stand up. All of you right now. Everything stretch, kids, let's go. Okay, so stretch, reach for the sky, sidewinder. Okay, and now I would like everybody born before 1950 to park it. 1960 and earlier, have a seat. 1970 and earlier, sit down, please. Oh, look at all you babies. Hey, no, just in your chair. So everybody who was born post-1970, this quote was published before you were born, okay? And it says, I'm now going to read it. You're standing for this because you need to suffer along with the rest of us who are waiting. We recommend the federal government immediately take steps, where's my laser pointer, to with the provinces, leading to the adoption of a National Daycare Act, under which federal funds would be made available on a cost-sharing basis for the building and running of daycare centers, and so on. Okay, have a seat. So, why is this important? Because this is an excerpt from the, started in 1967, published in 1970, Royal Commission on the Status of Women. This is more than 51 years old, okay? So when we're talking about organizing childcare workers in Ontario or in the rest of the country,
get on it.
We've been waiting for what exactly? Okay, 51 years here, right? And it's not even about organizing them. It's like for sufficient childcare generally, and that's a big deal. Like we have to look at all of our players, where they're at, what their engagement level is, and who they are, right? And we have never had a better opportunity than we do now to organize childcare workers in Ontario or across the country, okay? Normally, when we're talking about, organizing people and stuff, I'm actually just gonna for a second. When we're talking about organizing people, I know a lot of us might find it's like kind of awkward, right? Like, you're like, it's like, have you heard of our Lord and Savior organized labor? Like, you can't, like, it's hard, right? Like, you're like, hi. And so that's a piece now. It's like, well, that introduction has been done for us. Like, this is all over the news. Everybody is talking about childcare, about government promises, about, budgets. All of these things are already out there. Like, this data is being discussed. What we need to do is put a face on the people who are doing this work, right? So it's not just about the people who are acting as the employers or the kids going into the care, it's the people doing the job. And so far we haven't been discussing that very much, right? But this is our opportunity to do it, and not only to engage the public in this conversation, but our memberships, and also these workers themselves, these unknown group of workers, right? We have statistics about them, but who are they actually? So the benefits of organized childcare workers. So the benefits for employers are that they have better employee retention, skill set, and there is a demonstrable link between unionization and quality childcare, and better working conditions, and that leads to more stability. So for the employers, it's actually really great. And for a lot of them too, because these are a lot of the time ad hoc organizations, groups of, stay-home moms and nonas and whatever, providing childcare. Having an organization like a union can help clear up expectations for the working environment, right? A lot of these people don't do occupational health and safety rules. What if they run on common sense principles, right? Which we know are not necessarily always a thing. So, so that's an important part, is recognizing that there are benefits for employers when we're having these conversations. Now, how is it beneficial for childcare workers? Well, let's guess. What do you think? What would be the benefits for a childcare worker? Anybody?
Wages.
Okay, what else?
Better working conditions.
Overall,
Job
right?
security.
Okay,
Benefits.
Yes.
Benefits. Yes.
Absolutely, right? Sick days. Right? One of the things I was talking about with my kids, when they were very small, when my twins were just very small, like 6 months old, I went back to work, and there was a childcare, so a daycare in town where I used to live in Alberta. And luckily, we didn't have any of the problems that I hear about my friends having here in the city. There's bed bugs, there's lice, there's ringworm,
Oh.
there's hoof and mouth disease. Like, I am not exaggerating. These are things. Like, teachers, I'm sure some of you have run into these things in school. They're like, hey, my class has lice. Like, so imagine that you're a home care provider or you work in a daycare, and and all of these things are coming into your home. You don't have benefits, you don't have a plan, you don't have anything to
Right.
deal with all of these things. Do you shut down? Do you take a 2-week COVID break? No, you can't do those things. So the benefits are, as we mentioned, more stable income, paid time off. There's a recent study from Duke that says that there's a connection between unionization and higher self-reported health. Now that's from the States and they don't have social care, but it still matters, right? And it's also for the future. So those benefits, you have dental, you need a dentist. Well, maybe that means you have a dentist in your neighborhood. You don't have service deserts. Wages, of course. Look at those numbers. They make nothing, right? So when you're talking to people, we're looking at this, benefits for communities, right? There's pensions, to help support people in their dotage and things of the like. Every dollar invested in Ontario has a $2.42 return in short and long-term benefits for Ontario specifically. That matters. That's something you can use to talk to people on both sides of the fence about this, right? Benefits of the union, we get more political clout, which is a huge thing to me. I really feel like the unions need to be more political. We need to take hold of the power that we have and wield it mightily and with enthusiasm. We already do represent a lot of people, and CUPE's been doing it, so I just want to ask all you CUPE members, what up? Do you know of any of these campaigns? Have you heard about them? We were talking about how, where was it? In Europe, who said this?
Rebecca.
That they're looking at mentioned programs in place. Okay, so they look like programs that CUPE has already in place, but we're not seeing the same results, right? And my question, in part for follow-up, would be why? What can we do to bolster these things? So, what's that? I don't know what that says. Oh yes, campaigns. So this is just an example of some of the campaigns, childcare now and so forth. That's the next steps. Get involved. Bring these back to your locals, especially if you're CUPE. It's you already, right? And just talk to anybody. We don't have to have those awkward door knocking moments, right? This is already neat and ready to go for us. And I'll leave you with two things. It does take a village, and that doesn't mean that you can pass your twins off to Nona so you can go to the bar. It means like everybody does have something to contribute and support, not just in the care directly of the child, but generally to go. And I'll just put some stats up there so you can really see the impact of what we're talking about here, and imagine the political clout we would have had in getting Ontario with their provincial program done if 100,000 childcare workers had already been organized and had a good voice.
I didn't realize it's 1/3. Wow.
Right?
Thank you.